Welcome back to TV viewers. It's Chris Niccolls here from the Camera Store TV, and we are coming to you actually from the Camera Store's classroom because we have a little bit of an educational video for you today. We're coming to you from the classroom for two reasons. It's freezing cold outside and it's warm in here, and the acoustics are and I guess we really want that for you there at home. So deal with it. And what we're going to talk about today is adapters, and sort of the state of the market of adapters right now, how they are working, what's good, what's not, and what you need to know about them. Now, like it or not, you have to understand adapters. It's an integral part of photography nowadays, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, a lot of people are looking to switch over from Canon to Nikon cameras into the mirrorless world, but you're going to lose so much money if you sell all of that old glass and then try to buy new glass. And so there's a lot to be said for getting an adapter and then using your existing Nikon and Canon glass on your new mirrorless body. Now, on top of that, a lot of the mirrorless cameras are excellent for stills and video, and adapters have a lot of interesting artistic applications for video as well. In fact, Jordan shoots with an adapter right now in the GH5 with Sigma glass. That being said, though, today we're going to focus more on photography because autofocus through adapters in the video market still has not arrived, and you're largely still going to manual focus. Now, we've got the Sony A7R III. These are very popular cameras on the market. They're full frame mirrorless, and thus they take the full frame Canon lenses very, very well. But we did also bring the Olympus EM1 Mark II today, as well as a Panasonic G9, because a lot of people are now looking at Micro Four Thirds as an SLR replacement too. First, let's look at the Sony stuff that we're going to play with. Now, I've got three adapters here, and it's important to understand that these are all full frame adapters. And what I mean by that is they're intended to work with full frame Nikon or Canon lenses onto Sony full frame E-mount, although you can of course use them on Sony crop sensor cameras as well. Now, here's the Sigma MC11 and here's the Metabones adapter. Don't be put off by the big mount. This is just a cine version here. And these are both doing the exact same thing. However, it has to be understood that this whole Canon EF to Sony business was really the first successful adapter market out there because they were able to crack the code and make things like metering work, aperture control work, and autofocusing work to varying degrees. And so these are the latest iterations of those adapters that we're going to play with. Over here, I've got a brand new Commlite ENF-E1 adapter. This is the first one that we've personally seen that lets you take Nikon glass, put it onto a full frame Sony, and yet have electrical connection, autofocus, and aperture control. We've never played with it, but we're going to try it today. I also want to mention, we're going to be using 85mm focal lengths today, and the reason for that is the thin depth of field makes it easier to see if there are autofocusing issues and how bad they are, but you have to understand that when it comes to adapters, different lenses, different focal lengths, Tamron, Sigma, Canon, Nikon, it's all going to be kind of a crapshoot. You really got to guess and test each one themselves to see how they're going to perform on your particular setup. So I've got the Sony A7R III. This is their latest autofocusing system. It does have phase detect and contrast detect, so it will be the best they offer. We're using the native Sony 85mm 1.4, of course, without an adapter. First thing I want to try is just continuous autofocus, and as you can see here, I mean, it's beautiful. As Jordan jumps in and then jumps out, it's just quick and snappy, zero delay, and very accurate. And now we'll throw on the eye autofocus and we'll see how it tracks there for speed. And again, amazing system. As he goes back and forwards, it tracks beautifully. All right, so now we've got the brand new 85 1.4 on here. It actually does have stabilization, and it is worth noting that these adapters maintain stabilization on the lenses if you want them to. So let's go ahead and do our test here. First off, in continuous focusing. Now again, it picks it up pretty quick. I am going to say that sometimes there's a little bit of a hesitation from a far distance to a close distance compared to the native glass, but still very, very consistent. Let's do eye autofocus here with Jordan next. And again, you can see it picks it up really quickly. There's no delay in picking up the eye, but as it's tracking, I do still feel like with the Metabones, there's a slight bit of just jitteriness as it moves forward and backwards. So you don't get that smooth transition, but it is still working very effectively. Okay, so now we're gonna try the Sigma 85mm 1.4 on here. And again, same adapter. Let's get Jordan in there, jumping in and out. And again, I'm seeing very, very similar results. It's hard to tell there's any difference. I'm still getting that jittery feel, and you can even feel and hear it through the adapter. Let's try autofocus here next. And picks it up quick. Very similar performance to the Canon 85. I'm not seeing any difference. I mean, any small difference that I am seeing, I think I'd have to attribute it just the fact that we have different lenses with different motors, different amounts of glass. The Sigma is definitely a beast of a lens, but overall, functionality is very, very similar. All right, so now it's time to use the Sigma MC11 with the Canon 85mm 1.4, but I just want to mention two things first before I go further. One, keep in mind these tests are pretty dark. We're 800th of a second, 1.4 at ISO 1600. Second thing I want to mention to you here, the MC11 does not have a tripod adapter, but the Metabones, you can get those with them. And with big heavy lenses like this, there's just a little bit of sag. I don't think it's going to break anything, but it's disconcerting. Let's try our test here. Now, first off, a continuous. Now I think what you're going to see here, it's quite quick, but when Jordan moves forward or backwards, you definitely lose the tracking. The adapter's trying to catch up. When he stops moving, it catches him right away. But as he's transitioning forward and backwards, we are losing a little bit. And here in eye autofocus, yeah, I think we're getting very similar results. Again, we're losing that tracking when Jordan moves in extreme directions forward or backwards. Side to side and slow, it seems to be able to catch up, but otherwise, it's definitely slower than the Metabones. Okay, so now we have the Sigma MC11 with the 85 1.4. It's a lot of weight on the front here, but let's give it a try. Now here with Jordan jumping in continuous, as he moves in and out, and as he jumps out of frame and jumps back in, I mean, this is a totally different story. In fact, I would say this is the fastest combo we've used. It's basically the same as using the native glass. And with eye autofocus, again, no problems at all. It's tracking beautifully. Okay, so those are some interesting results there. I mean, the Sigma and the Metabones both are well built. They transmit image stabilization, autofocus, and metering. But the Sigma is half the price, okay? Now that being said, no tripod adapter. And when you're using Canon glass, it's definitely worse performance than the Metabones. When you're using Sigma glass, it's definitely better performance than with the Metabones. So I think it's really gonna come down to what lenses you're gonna be coming to the game with, what you normally use. Jordan and I, for our show, actually rely on a lot of Sigma glass for our cameras. However, I would think most people are coming from Canon EF glass, and in that case, the Metabones does give you the speed advantage. Okay, so now I'm just going to throw a little bonus in here. We're using the A7R III, but with the new Commlite adapter for Nikon lenses to Sony. And you have to appreciate this is basically newer territory. I mean, they haven't had nearly the same amount of time as the Canon EF to Sony relationship that's been going on. So up to this point, basically all the adapters have been without electrical connection. Now that means no autofocus or image stabilization. Your camera's metering, but it doesn't know what aperture you're using, and you're actuating it mechanically with a lever on the side of the adapter. It was really like dark ages kind of stuff. And the attempt to make it work electronically, that has been a slippery slope indeed. So this Commlite now does work. Let's try it out and see. Okay, so continuous autofocus performance right off the bat is noticeably worse. I would say it's actually a little bit slower than the Sigma lens on the Metabones adapter test that we just did. You'll notice that we do lose Jordan as he's moving forward and backwards, and there's even some situations where it's hunting a little bit, trying to reacquire, but still, it's pretty fast, and if he's standing still, it's very, very quick and very, very accurate. We go to eye autofocus here. Again, it's doing a very, very good job, but when he starts to move forwards or backwards, it loses it completely. So I would say this is the worst performance we've been seeing, but again, keep in mind that this is very, very new relationship, Nikon lenses with Sony bodies working properly, and it seems to be working consistently and accurately. I would say that this is basically like a generation behind, as if you were using a Sony A7R II with Metabones and these lenses. So it's definitely a usable product, and it's worth taking a look at. All right, so it's Micro Four Thirds time. Now we're using the Metabones speed boosters, and in this case we think the speed booster is the better way to go. Now that actually has glass elements inside that refocus the large light circle of a full frame lens down to the smaller sensor size of APS-C or Micro Four Thirds. It gives us a few advantages. Now first off, we get a full extra stop of light, which is very important with these small Micro Four Thirds sensors. Second thing is we only get a 1.5 crop factor instead of 2 times, which can be really nice when you don't want to alter your original full length as much as possible. We've also tested both the speed booster and the straight adapter, and autofocus performance is basically the same. Now I'm using the Olympus EM1 Mark II, and this has phase detect as well as contrast detect, a hybrid system, so it should perform well. Now as we take a look here though and do our shooting, well, you can see here that in continuous autofocus, it just can't do it. It loses it completely, it's hunting, it goes out, and then it just quits and gives up. Now, single point, I'm gonna try here, is actually quite a bit faster. In fact, I get my best performance in continuous autofocus if I just keep rapidly pressing the button. You can hear the beeping there to track Jordan. So Excellent for single autofocus use, excellent for video use for sure, but you're definitely not going to try to track moving subjects. I'm not even going to attempt to do our further tests outdoors using this. All right, so now we have the Panasonic G9, and again, remember, Panasonic does not have a dual focusing system. It is just contrast detect here, but let's give it a try and see how it performs. Now here in continuous, I mean, it's brutal here. So it's trying to focus properly. You know, you're just getting this constant hunting back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. It just can't do it properly. If I click over here to single and start using that there, it focuses accurately. I wouldn't say it's quick, and it definitely has to do an in-out hunt as well. So it's still not going to be usable for any sort of fast action at all. I mean, really the thing we have to understand about the speed booster on Micro Four Thirds, they're very useful tools to get the extra light that these smaller sensors need, and there's certainly an option to use your existing glass on your Micro Four Thirds camera. We also tested the Sigmas and we got very, very similar results, but you would never be able to use this for video work to track a moving subject. You'd never be able to use this for sports in action, and for single point focusing, only in the most still life situations. So Micro Four Thirds, we still need better technology out there.
Okay, grab your jacket.
I don't want to go outside.
We got to do a running test. We can't do a running test in here.
But it's -20 outside. Why don't you just run in here?
You're Canadian, be a Canadian.
It's low light, they'll appreciate the low light.
Get your jacket.
Damn it. All right, so it is bright as out here, and ironically it's also cold as hell, but we're gonna do it for you here. You know, what you saw indoors was more of a casual focusing test where it's just following Jordan's face. This would be, you know, if I had continuous autofocus on, but I was just choosing a picture here, I want this one, I want that one, you know, nothing rapid. So out here now we're gonna try to shoot at a mid-speed frame rate, continuous focusing with a zone area, very typical kind of sports, wildlife kind of setup, and see how well these lenses track Jordan as he runs. So I want you to understand as well, we're just doing the A7R III out here, and we're using the Sigma 85 with the MC11 because that was its best combo. We're gonna use the Canon 85 with the Metabones because that was its best combo, and we are gonna test the Nikon lens with that Commlite adapter and just see how it can do as well. So first off, as a control, we're gonna use the Sony 85mm 1.4, the native lens. We're shooting wide open, roughly 5 frames per second. And as you can see here, it does miss a little bit, you know, a couple of shots are out, but for the most part, it tracks it as we expect until we get within a minimum focusing distance, and then it loses it. So the next thing I want to try then is the Canon 85mm on the Metabones. And actually, I was surprised here, although it performed very well indoors with casual shooting, when asking the camera to shoot continuously, it just cannot keep up. In fact, it basically locks in place. And only if I go to the low shooting speed do I get some semblance of tracking, or again, picking and choosing my shots. It's not going to do a great job for continuous following. What was very surprising though was the Sigma on the MC11. It makes sense because of course the manufacturer is making both lens and adapter. We don't have to worry about 3 different companies trying to make everything work together. And it did a beautiful job. I mean, I'd even say I'd put it basically on par with the Control Sony native lens. It tracks beautifully. Now going to the Nikon lens on the Commlite adapter, again, very much like the Canon lens with the Metabones, it cannot keep up even in a mid-speed continuous shooting mode. I had to go to low to make it track, and even then it's not doing a great job. So all in all, we've got 2 options that work well and are feasible in a journalistic or sports situation, and 2 which are going to disappoint you. Okay, so happily in from the cold there. It's nice and warm in here. What is the state of affairs for adapters in generals nowadays? They've come a long way. I would say that if you're using Canon mount lenses on the modern Sony bodies, this is now a very feasible thing for you to do. Bring your old lenses over, use them on your new bodies, and you'll be happy. Particularly impressive was the Sigma lens combination on the Sigma MC11 with the Sony camera. You know, the only, I guess, issue I have with that is I would imagine most people have a whole collection of Canon lenses, not Sigma autofocus lenses sitting at home. And so I don't think you should buy a whole bunch of Sigma lenses and an adapter just to put them on here. Now, if you're using Canon lenses, the performance wasn't as good, but it was still excellent for a lot of kinds of photography. The main weakness is if you're holding down continuous frames per second shooting, then it's going to basically lose autofocus. But any sort of casual moving action, it's going to do a great job. Any still life, it's going to do a great job as well. And of course, the Micro Four Thirds we didn't test out there because the performance just wasn't up to par. But I do like that we have adapters for Micro Four Thirds now. The only issues there, though, frankly, if you look at Micro Four Thirds, its only real major advantage of the mirrorless system is the fact that it's a very compact system with very small lenses. So getting those cameras, getting an adapter, and then bringing really heavy full frame glass onto those, I don't know if that's such a big advantage. So I don't think we're gonna see a lot of improvement in the adapters as quickly as for Sony. I might be wrong. Most videographers using Micro Four Thirds though, you're probably gonna manually focus. And for you Nikon users, last but not least, don't fret. Technology is changing. Adapters are coming out to help you out. The performance isn't quite where we want it to be, but these are big steps from the basically dead non-electrical adapters that we had before. I want you to keep in mind that we only tested a small portion of the whole world today, and the permutations of lenses with adapters with bodies is mind-boggling and almost endless. And of course, performance is going to vary as you have different lenses and different combinations, for sure. And you know, on top of that, are adapters expensive? Yeah, absolutely they are. Do they add more weight and bulk? They certainly do, especially when you put those bigger lenses onto mirrorless cameras. Are there slight optical problems with full frame lenses on adapters? Yeah, there are, although I don't think that they're ever gonna wreck your photos in any way, shape, or form. But really, you know, mirrorless cameras, they represent such an amazing experience now. Having the EVF, having the ability to do high-end video as well as stills at the same time. And it makes sense that you should wanna bring a lot of your old glass over. And so I think overall, adapters are a positive change in our industry, and they're only getting better and better. What about the other brands? I mean, Fuji XF mount, there's a lot of dead adapters out there, which is to say they're non-electrical. You can use those, but I think Fuji users like the look, feel, cost, frankly, and quality of the native Fuji mount. I don't see a lot of people adapting stuff over there. And you know, Canon EOS M is another mirrorless mount out there, and of course they indeed have their own adapter for their EF lenses, which works very, very well. So it's a growing world and an exciting world, and I think you should stay informed and keep looking out for the new products that are coming. I hope you guys found that informative and useful. Again, comment to us below, check out our Instagram pages, tweet to us what you think. Keep watching, subscribe please, and we look forward to seeing you soon.